Hello everyone, I'm here with Mr. Valentin Nedelcu to talk about an extremely important aspect of a woman's life, which is money management. This video is created as part of the EmpowHER project, Smart Money, Strong Women, a project co-financed under the Erasmus Plus program. Thank you, Valentin, for accepting my invitation to do this interview. Happy to be here, and thank you for the invitation, Daniela. This interview targets Romanian women and Belgian women, and will be published online, including on the Erasmus Plus project results platform. So, at the start of this interview, it is very important you tell us who you, Valentin Nedelcu, are, and why are you considered an expert in the field of financial education in Romania. First, by training, I am an economist. By profession, I am a tax consultant. And by experience, I have been an investor on the stock market for almost 20 years, since 2005 to be exact. Besides, on the financial education side, my most significant work has been the one I've done in the last 8 years or so, or since I founded Știința Banilor community, that has a Facebook group, Știința Banilor, Educație Financiară, and that reached over 100,000 people interested in investments and managing personal finances. I'm also an accredited coach, a professional coach, a trainer, and an entrepreneur. A truly remarkable walk, and thank you once again for being part of our video material. Financial educators put a lot of emphasis on people's attitude towards money, and I know you offer a training course on this topic. So, since our project is aimed at women in general, what attitude towards money have you observed in women? Please give us some examples from our classes and from your work as a financial coach. Generally, I noticed that women have a good attitude towards money in terms of managing personal finances. Many women are the money managers of their families, Romanian women at least. Many women manage the shopping. According to statistics, they decide on what is spent the family money. They are responsible for most of the money spent and for the purchases, which somehow adds to the fact that they are also often the masters of their family budget. They have this skill of good personal finance management. They have this skill of good personal budget allocation. They are, though, more reluctant towards investments. This is where they are perhaps too cautious. Women in Romania are less interested in making investments. They are much more interested in savings, budget cuts, and discounts. And that's a shame because, according to studies, women are, on average, better investors than men. So it's a shame to leave out this large area of financial education, to leave it aside. Interesting, truly interesting what you just said. In this context, we all believe that our attitude towards money helps us in our approach of that area, which, as you said, at this moment is not covered as much as you think it should be. There are few women investors in the stock market, for instance, or in real estate. However, studies show that once they learn a certain strategy, they stick to it better. because they are more risk-averse and choose to adhere to the exact strategy, and they don't boast, "I know better what I do on paper than the standard strategy." So being disciplined and following the steps carefully, they become better investors on average than men, who wander away many times. They think, "Okay, I know better than the strategy. Wait, I found an opportunity there." They are much more risk lovers, and in the field of investing, if you don't manage the risks well, you might lose. Can you share some success stories from this area of women who were successful because they acquired financial knowledge? Of course, yes. One of our students who attended our classes somewhere around 2018, around the time we started the Science of Money courses, she recently published a book about investments for women, investments in the stock market for women. It is the first book dedicated exclusively to female investors in Romania. Her name is Ildiko Ludman, and she was one of our students in the beginning, somewhere between 2017-2018, when we started the Science of Money project. This lady started from zero financial knowledge, learned from the ground up how to make a personal budget, start saving, diversifying her income. She had a certain job and started doing other things to earn an additional income and invest in the stock market. At one point, she also made a real estate investment, a studio apartment, after she took a course. She followed the steps. Okay, I'll buy the studio, it should be like this, it can be rented, the tenant should be like this, the renovation is done this way. So she started in the real estate investment and on the stock market, where she developed much more. In real estate, she saw it was difficult with just a studio apartment, so she limited herself to just one investment. She has developed nevertheless on the stock market and is now the published author of an investment book for women. Congratulations to her. She can be a role model too. She certainly is. I know many female investors who are professionals, have a certain profession and earn quite well in IT, medicine, and so on, and who, in the same way, started investing a few years ago after attending the courses at Știința Banilor. And today, for instance, I have a meeting with one of them, a woman who, at 30 or so years old, reached financial independence. And now we're going to discuss how to start withdrawing from her portfolio to live off investments, which again sounds fantastic to me as a success story. So we already have two success stories. A person who started from zero financial knowledge and went on to become a financial education teacher, including by publishing a book, and another person, also a woman, who within 4 or 5 years managed to reach financial independence through investments. And there are many other success stories, each one of them special in its own way. Because you said there are women who started from scratch, in other words, from absolutely no financial knowledge, a question might immediately pop up in the mind of someone who watches us. I too have absolutely no knowledge of this field. What should I do first? The first step should always be saving money. If at this moment you don't manage to save money from your income, or you manage to save very little, under 10%, this is the first thing you should do, namely to find the things you spend your money on, to make your personal budget, and after you have made this personal budget, right, to find where the money goes to and where do you want it to go, to see where you can optimize so that you are able to save at least 10% of your monthly income. If you are still not able to save even after optimizing, in other words, after you stopped wasting money, the personal budget doesn't make you stop buying the essentials or fulfill some wants, but it helps you eliminate the waste. Maybe you buy subscriptions you don't use, maybe you throw away the food you buy, maybe you buy certain foods all the time and throw it away. You stop buying them at some point. Maybe you can optimize your phone costs, the costs with utilities, clothing costs. Sometimes you can get a discount. During discount periods, you can switch brands. There can be two distinct brands. Women are passionate about clothes. We can learn a little about this, about the quality of fabrics, the cotton dyeing of clothes, how they are dyed, the manufacturing processes, and we can understand that certain brands manufacture clothes of a very good quality, but they don't own brands that make money for the brand owners. They have some normal brands. In other words, they have normal profit margins. You can have a coat that costs 20 euros, is of excellent quality, and another coat of the same quality that costs 80 euros. The difference being that the second brand is promoted as being special, so to speak. Though the quality of cotton, the fabric, and the dyeing process is the same. So we can use many sources shopping at the supermarket, buying clothes, taking advantage of discount periods. We can also benefit from special facilities. If we are good at money management, we can benefit from interest-free installments on the credit card. Credit cards are bad if you end up paying interest on them. Otherwise, they're great if you get discounts, interest-free installments, cashback, and long grace periods. I, for one, have credit cards. I don't recommend everyone to use credit cards unless they are financially disciplined. I've had credit cards for 15 years, and only once I forgot to pay. And you paid interest. Yes, one day, a very small amount. I was on vacation, I forgot. For the rest of the time, for 15 years, I have taken advantage of them all. Cashbacks, now there are also new digital banks. In Romania too, including a Romanian one that has just been launched, which offers cashbacks for all kinds of payments. MasterCard, for example, has a promotion called MasterCard Tuesday, quarterly discounts, and gives you cash back on all the respective cards for all kinds of purchases. One quarter you shopped at the supermarket, another quarter at a gas station. So it's about keeping yourself informed, educating yourself so that you can take the first step, saving money by controlling expenses. And if it's difficult, you make a budget, right? You optimize what you can. And if it's difficult, you can search, for example, on Știința Banilor Facebook page, where you'll find all kinds of tips and tricks that help you. You'll get 50 lei from there, 100 from there, 25 from there. I mean, there are always opportunities and simple things you can do to save some more money. I am certain that some of the women viewers still feel overwhelmed when they hear about financial education, about the things they need to learn. Maybe they have small children, maybe they also have a job, maybe they also have a lot of household chores, maybe they raise their kids as single moms and really feel overwhelmed. What encouragement would you give them? The encouragement is valid for both women and men, especially when you reach a certain age, the age where you are professionally active and have children. Everything falls on your shoulders. You need to raise your children and perform at work and build the relationship with your partner. And you also have your aging parents to take care of. They are reaching old age and maybe they lack something. All of us are absolutely swamped, so to say. So that's why financial education options, money management strategies must be as simple, automatic, and efficient as possible. For example, when speaking about the budget, a good option is to install a budget app to see where the money is spent. You make a purchase, you take out your phone and type it in. Money Manager, for instance. There are many apps. Money Manager is one of them. Is that a free app? There are many free apps for the functions we need. For more complex functions such as uploading bank account statements and having it automatically make the allocation for you, there is also a paid version. However, most of them, if you access Google Store or App Store, you can search for budget management, do a search, you can find many apps and they're okay. That's an option that takes a bit of time though, because you need to take out your phone and type, it requires a bit of discipline. But it won't take a lot of time. Another saving option that's even more effective, because it doesn't take so much time, is the following. You get the money, the salary for instance, and you transfer right away at least 10% of it to another account which doesn't have a card connected to it. The best option would be to transfer it to an investment fund, to a mutual fund, or directly to the stock market. But it's a good idea to make the transfer to another account that doesn't have a card linked to it, so you cannot have access to it. You've already saved 10%, you can live your life with the remaining 90% of the money. It takes you only 3 seconds and it does the job. It's not like you'll not be able to live your life if the 10% of the money is gone. Because, well, what do you know? Taxes are going to rise up by 10% tomorrow. What about then? What do? We die? We don't die. We adapt, right? We adapt. So you would call attention to the decision that everyone should make and to the decision followed up by action that will turn into automatic behavior. Absolutely, you can even make a recurring payment from your bank account if you have internet banking into another account that is also yours, or in a savings account at the same bank, for example. And the payment is made automatically. You know, you get your salary on the 10th, you set a recurring payment of 10% of the amount on the 11th, you calculate yourself the 10% and the money is transferred right away. And then you use the card, but only 90% of the amount. Better, even better, is to directly invest the 10% of the money, to send them directly. 1. If you want the more advanced level, to invest directly in the stock market in an ETF, which is an exchange-traded fund, a fund with low commissions and which gives you exposure to the most important companies on the stock market, and all this without having to make any decisions. It takes you only 3 minutes a month. You make the transfer, you make the purchase, and that's it. That's the whole strategy of investment. The slightly more advanced but still simple option is to invest in an ETF, exchange-traded fund, either in Romania or internationally. And the simpler option is to invest in a mutual fund of the bank where you have the card. It is a more expensive option, there are slightly higher fees, performance will probably be a bit affected by those fees. But anyway, if you invest in a stock fund, you will most likely get returns well above bank deposits in the long term. Statistically, investing on the stock market in shares, it is called global indices, namely these ETFs. Broad market, in other words, the broad market. What is an ETF? It is a fund that has a certain basket of shares. And there are ETFs that take the most important shares in the US, for example, on Standard & Poor's 500. And you invest with only one click in the 500 of the most renowned companies in the world, including Microsoft, Google, Facebook, Tesla, Nvidia, Coca-Cola, Visa, and so on. And with a few euros, 20 euros for example, you made a click and invested in all 20 companies. It takes very little time, it's a very simple strategy, and you only make one purchase per month with a 10%. This is the slightly more complicated option, but quite simple. With a bit of education, it is easy to learn. The simpler option, and within the reach of absolutely anyone, you invest in a share fund, I must underline shares, of the bank where you have the card. Most banks also have a card. All this after taking that first step that you told us about before. Directly 10% for savings. To be effective, you transfer right away the 10% to a savings account, or you invest it directly in a mutual fund or an ETF, and after that you live your life. So basically you save money by default because you don't have it anymore, you put it somewhere else. When speaking about money management, I'm sure many of the women watching this are co-living with someone, married or living with a partner. In this matter, what recommendation do you have regarding money management? Do we manage money individually or as a family, as a couple? And when you answer this question, please tell us also about the pros and cons of the decision that women should make. In this matter, a lot depends on the long-term goals and values alignment. I mean, it is quite difficult to share money with someone who is a spender and says, I won't get to live long enough to see my pension. Why should I put money aside when I won't enjoy retirement? And who is living with someone who says, I want to have a good pension, to make myself an additional pension. That is, I make some savings and investments in order to obtain an additional income in retirement, in addition to perhaps Pillar 2 of private pensions and the state pension. I'll have some dividends, for example. It's very difficult for them to share the money because their values are very different, their personalities are very different, and they will clash. One's goal is to relax in retirement, and they put money aside for that. The other one's goal is to live in the moment. And they say they won't get to live long enough to enjoy retirement. Statistically, the second one will also reach retirement. Statistically, people reach retirement. Most of us do. Only those who have accidents don't really reach it. So it's a matter of goals and values. Right, either the values are aligned and the money is shared according to an agreed common objective. We keep part of the budget for discretionary expenses to feel that we can just spend some money, a few €100. But look, 10%, 20% we put aside for our retirement. Why? Because the retirement age, I don't know when we're going to retire, it's probably going to be over 67. But statistically, you can live another 20 years after the legal retirement age, maybe even more. True. Life expectancy keeps increasing. Now it's 76 years old. By the time we reach retirement, it will be 80 or so. And you have perhaps 20 years more to live, maybe more. If you think about it, 20 years is a long time. Think what you were like 20 years ago. 20 years ago, I was 20 years old. Now I'm 40 years old. I can't even remember a whole life. I've lived many lives in 20 years. How can you ignore that time of maybe 20, 30 years? That time of your life when you're not able to do anything else. When it's less likely to start learning again, will you be able to restart learning to make money at 78 years old? I doubt it. So you rely a lot on what you did in the past. How can you ignore the fact that that person, who will be you, will have 2 decades in which you will want to live a quiet life, to go on a trip sometimes, to go to a restaurant, to buy a good coat, to not worry about paying maintenance, heating, and whatever medicines you need. It is you from the future. And this person in the last quarter of life has the right to enjoy life. Even more so, as you no longer need to go to work to raise children. You have free time. You set other goals, and this would be a benefit, I understand. If the money were shared in a family, it would bring the benefit of old age insurance, so to speak. If a consensus is reached on common goals, but this is discussed, common goals and common values, we want to put money aside. Be careful, you can't put money aside for retirement without investing, because inflation eats away at it. It's a Sisyphean task. You put them in a bank, the bank gives you 3%, and the inflation is 7% or 6%. For every year, you lose up to 30 years. This makes your money vanish. You need to invest. In the stock market, for instance, the yield over the last 100 years on the US stock market is somewhere around 6.57% plus inflation. So every year it is brought above the average inflation. In Romania, it is even higher. In the last 13-14 years, the Romanian stock market index averaged somewhere around 17-18% per year, so much higher than the average inflation of the last 12-13 years, which was somewhere around 4%. The stock market and investments in general bring much more inflation, simply put, an increase in purchasing power, while the money kept in bank deposits at most maybe maintains your purchasing power. It offers you the interest that covers, or almost covers, inflation. That's what I'm talking about. We don't put money aside, we need to invest if we want to have money in retirement. And private pension funds invest over 25% of their money in shares and the rest in government bonds. Somewhere around 70% in government bonds. So, if we have common objectives, we reach a consensus. We manage it together. Otherwise, if there is no discussion about this and there are conflicts and objectives that collide, then there is no point in sinking both ships. And the budget should be managed separately. But in that case, maybe I would think a little. See a psychologist and do couples therapy. I mean, if you do not reach a consensus on such an important life goal, then maybe there are other issues in that relationship that must be addressed. They must not be left unaddressed. When speaking about values, in your courses, in your financial coaching sessions, have you noticed differences in men's and women's attitude towards money, or other differences in their view on money? Are there differences between men and women? Yes, of course there are. There are differences related to objectives. Women often want to get security from investments. They think, maybe one day I won't be able to work anymore, and I will need income from investments. Investment income comes from dividends. You bought shares in companies that pay dividends. For example, in Romania you have companies that pay 7, 8, 9% in dividends. Or it comes from rents or interest. These are the income from investments, just to clarify. Women often think about security. I want an additional income in retirement. If I can no longer work, I want an income. I want to make sure that I will be okay all my life, that I can have a decent life. Men, on the other hand, often have much more aggressive and aspirational goals. I want to be financially independent at 40 years, at 30 if possible. I want to be able to buy cars, to be young and rich. And that's why they are much more risk-oriented, they have less patience. Women being oriented towards safety, their progress is more like that of a turtle, step by step. They are much more disciplined from what I have seen in applying a strategy. You learn the strategy, that is the strategy. You need to do it in the long term. That's all you need to know. How long do I need to do it? Until you retire. Oh, until 63 or whatever the retirement age will be. Okay, so that's all I need to do? One purchase a month? Two purchases a month? Yes, that's all. Oh, okay, and what do I need to do now? Well, you need to try and save a little more, to invest more, to have a bigger amount. For them, it's like this. Okay, I save more, I invest more, so I have even more security. And they count on that strategy. And they usually have better returns than men who say, listen, that's all the strategy, that's what it delivers, that's all it delivers, only 9% per year. I'll find something better. And I'll try this too. Let me try a bit of crypto. Let me buy these smaller shares. They're called small caps with growth potential, but also with the potential to go to zero. And they take risks and do all kinds of moves and lose. If you take risks without having a well-planned strategy, you lose. That's how it is in the stock market. It's not like in other places. I took a risk and won. Risk must be managed. Professionals who take a little more risk win. Ordinary people who take risks win once, lose once, win again, and then lose everything. They don't have a risk management system. It is a more advanced stage of investments that manages higher risks. I see. Earlier, you said something about the budget. If we look back at what happened since the pandemic, since 2020, prices have increased a lot. But they have not increased proportionally to incomes. Incomes have increased much less, or in case of some people, not at all. In this context of saving and investment, in the context of spending control, can you give us a recommendation on the budget percentage allocation? You mentioned 10% per saving. How should we distribute the rest as a percentage by categories of expenses? First, if your income has not increased in line with inflation, we look at official inflation. Inflation started to rise in 2022, 2023. It was quite high. 16% maximum in Romania, and in 2024 it cooled down. Let's say in 3 years, the total inflation went down around 30%. If your income hasn't increased by that amount, you should look at other jobs or talk to your boss or something. Because in the economy, overall, net pay has increased more than inflation in the last 3 years. On average, if this hasn't happened to you, you should look for another job, or talk to your boss, or do something. Because in general, salaries have increased. The average net salary in today's Romanian economy is 1,050 euros. 5,200 lei. So salaries have increased on average. In some areas, they didn't. If they didn't in your area, either you change jobs or attend additional training, get an additional qualification, or talk to the boss, because others got it, and in your case, something didn't work. And the budget percentage allocation? The budget percentage allocation, the most important part of the budget, is allocated to investment savings. As I said, a minimum of 10%. Then you have the essential living expenses, which should take up around 50%. The essential living expenses mean everything related to the house. This includes mortgage or rent, if the case, utilities, shopping at the supermarket, food, necessary clothing. You don't buy a fancy hat that goes to once. So essential clothes, anything that is a need, laundry detergents, and so on. So everything that you must have, take up to 50%, and 30% to wishes. That's where the holiday budget comes in, the budget for more non-essential, more special clothes, where toys come in, experiences, restaurants, and other things. So 10-20% savings investments, 50% needs, and what is left, 30-40%, would be for wants, for good things that make our life beautiful. Those things are important too, but they are not strictly necessary. Where does financial education come in this percentage breakdown? In this budget, I'd like to say it's a need, but I'd rather place it under wants, aspirations. So in that 30-40% budget, let's make some room for education too. Training of any kind, not necessarily financial training. 5% of the budget, 10%. In an ideal world, we wouldn't be like most people in Romanian statistics who, in a month, spend on education less money than the cost of a pack of cigarettes, around 13-15 lei per month. You need to allocate a percentage of your budget to education. For some people, this percentage is big. You have 2 children who get ready, let's say, one for secondary school final exams and the other one for high school final exams. On top of this, you evolve in your career. You attend a training course. Maybe you put 10% of the budget or more towards education. Other people put smaller percentages, 5, 3%. But my point is you need to have a budget to spend on a book about personal development or career development. Once in a while, you attend a training course of some sort, either related to your job or that teaches you a soft skill useful in the financial area. It can be financial education. Why? Well, because you invest, let's say, 200 lei and learn a skill, an ability that helps you save 200 or 300 lei every month, or invest monthly an amount that brings you, maybe in the first year, 1,000 lei increase in income, in the second year, 2,000 lei, in the third year, 5,000 lei, and in the long term, it brings you as much money as a studio apartment, maybe in 10 years. If you don't invest, you don't put money into your education, your income can't increase much, and your standard of living can't increase much either. Look at your children. If they don't go to school every day, in their case, though, if they attend a public school, you know someone else invests in them more than you do. All teachers are paid by state budget. Actually, all of us support the children in Romania. All of us invest in our children indirectly through the fees and taxes we pay. Parents invest indirectly through fees and taxes, but also directly. The point is, everyone invests a lot of money in children's education. When you become an adult, no one puts money into you. We no longer invest in a grown-up person, in an adult's development. We invest in a child to help this child learn math, reading and writing, even go to a college. But we no longer invest in an adult. However, that doesn't mean that investing in your education stops after you finish school. Investing can stop. But you also stop developing. You'll say salaries are low and life is hard, but the people who earn more and more money, and in Romania there are people who earn 10,000 euros a month, 20,000, 50,000 euros a month, they're millionaires. According to an international consulting company, I think it's called Nightfort, they did a study in 2023. There were 91,500 millionaires in dollars in Romania. 91,500 or 95,500. Anyway, the point is there were close to 100,000 millionaires, and not all of them are politicians or people who, as some might say, have contracts with the state. These people are a few. There are 100,000, an average city of millionaires in dollars. I don't think most of these people stopped learning when they left school. Many are doctors, IT experts. Doctors invest a lot in themselves, the good ones, especially those who make their own private clinics. Likewise, the IT experts, programmers, engineers, entrepreneurs, they invest a lot in their own development. That's why I say you need to have a percentage, even if it's from the one's desires budget, that smaller percentage. You need to put a certain percentage from there towards your education. A final question related to the beneficiaries of our project co-financed under the Erasmus Plus program. They are women who do not have a recurring income. They depend on the income of their small rural businesses, or they are freelancers. Many of the women beneficiaries in Belgium are freelancers. They don't have the same amount of income every month, and they feel it's difficult to dedicate a percentage to savings or to wants. What would you recommend such a woman to do to manage her money so she can develop in this financial area? The process is reversed. It's not like that for employees. An employee gets, let's say, 500, 1,000 euros and puts aside 10% of that amount. A person with income from freelancing, or a small business, or a person with a fluctuating monthly income, you can earn 3,000 euros this month, 10 euros the next month, 500 euros the other, 100 the next month. What do you do? When you have a lot of money, you spend it all. When you don't have money, you die of hunger. My suggestion for people who have fluctuating income is to use the I pay myself one salary strategy. In other words, you should not consider the amount you earn in a month as your income for that month, but you should put it in a savings account. Calculate the amount for last year, determine an average for last year to see how much you earned on average per month. Let's say that all your income adds up to 12,000 euros. Even though your income fluctuates significantly, the average is 1,000 euros. All the money you get today from freelancing, your small business, or whatever else you do, you put in a savings account. All of it, 100 euros or 3,000 euros, and take out from there to pay their own salary. In other words, you withdraw the monthly average amount you earned, that 1,000 euros. You transfer it into your current account, and then you manage it as if it were your salary. So you actually pay your own salary based on your annual estimated income. I think that's some very valuable information for our women viewers. I would like to hear from these women about the decisions they made, at least one decision based on all the suggestions you have offered in this interview. Thank you very much for your availability and your commitment to financial education in Romania and beyond. Happy to help. It was my pleasure. You said it very well. You need to reach a decision. I conclude with something that sums up what I said in this interview. These things are simple. Everything I talked about may seem a bit complicated, but everything is very, very simple and can be simplified even more. The important thing to do is, 1, decide. When I say I decide, I don't mean I would like to, I wish I would. To decide means to do something. And 2, to take a little time in the beginning to study the matter. And once you've learned how to do it, you take the simplest option of all the existing options. You start with the simplest thing you can do. You've made a choice, you've acted upon it, and later, after 6 months, after a year, you decide if you move on to something more complicated. But at least you've started. You are consistent in doing it and will have long-term results, spectacular results. Thank you. Thank you once again.